My talk will be a bit more from practice. So the title was how we went looking for Neo-Avant-Garde and missed it, but it was a working title and I realized it's wrong because it's really how I went searching for Neo-Avant-Garde and missed it, because it turns out other people were not really searching. So I will explain why. This was part from 2006 to 2009. I was part of several projects. Two were reenactments by director Janez Janša, where I worked as assistant director and dramaturg. So one was reenactment of a piece, Papa Popilo Papopilčki from 1969, which you can see behind. So this was done in 2006. Then I was doing a series of reenactments of performing arts in public space, like actions dealing with walking, which originated from around 65 to 75 with one from the 80s. This was done from 2008 to 2010-11. And then in 2009 I was assistant director and dramaturg with reenactment of Spomenik G, so Monument G. Again, same director as this, Dušan Jovanović, from the 72. And so, looking back, the method that Janez Janša used was really like deconstructing and showing the distance from reenactment and the original and the historical context. And for me also, being dramaturg in the project, the question was also always dealing with art which is contextual. So we're dealing with neo-avant-garde art. So for instance, they are now doing, this is a computer, if you didn't notice. From 69, please. So just to explain, with this piece, I felt like that Janša's method worked well, but then in my own reenactments, I figured out through 3 years of doing it that I was having a presupposition that was completely wrong, and it took 3 years for me to grasp. And another thing similar occurred to me regarding Monument G. And so in previous weeks, so this is more like my reflection and sort of initial exploration of the issue. And so in previous 2 weeks, I had interview with Janez Janša and with Jožica Albel, the main and the only actor in Monument G. And so just to say what is the difference between me and Janez Janša when we went into these reenactments. Of course, he was the boss, but I think like talking to him, his main, he was trying to deal with the history of Slovenian theater, saying that basically these two pieces which he reenacted were sort of like a blind spot in the history, like they were so out there that they were like, they didn't have any continuation basically. And also talking to him, it felt like it was a sort of maybe personal struggle, like he belongs to what we call in Slovenia third generation of directors, which emerged in late 80s with a shift from drama theater to post-drama theater, and their clash was the second generation, which was generation of basically also avant-garde or neo-avant-garde artists from the 60s, but then who went through institutions. So it was a sort of this also like a sub-context. Whereas my entry point into all this, I was doing diploma in 2006, comparative literature. So in Slovenia there are two neo-avant-garde groups. One, which I was researching, OHO, is like a bridge from modernism to neo-avant-garde, so 65 to 70. And Pupila Ferkerwerk, or 441, 442, 443, they're a bridge from neo-avant-garde to postmodernism. I was researching 60s because they were alien to me. So I basically did not understand anything, and this was alluring. And this is why I think I can say I went searching for neo-avant-garde, because there was something I didn't understand. We have 5 minutes already. Woo! Okay. Okay, so let's talk about this piece. So this piece was made out of 12 acts. 20 acts. And we had like this was television recording done in '69. It was done of entire show, but we got access only to 15 of these 20 scenes. So, but we were dealing with that, so we had really good source material. 3 were later not found, so now 18 of them are found. The 2 most controversial were coincidentally lost. One is a couple bathing naked on stage, and the other is the infamous killing of the chicken, which was the final act of the show. Also, we had access to talking to entire original cast, apart from Tomáš Kroll, who died before. And we also had their recordings and all that kind of material. The show itself basically works as a pop art, as ready-made. So these are like folk songs. There are like some parody of nationalistic songs. There are horoscope texts. So it's really like sort of like a pop art collage, and this is what it made it basically subversive, that it didn't have a thesis. It was just like playing. The performing is non-spectacular, non-expressive, everyday-like. There's no virtuosity, there's improvisation, there's tasks. The approach is non-aesthetized, and even though you could tell which scenes that they relate to different situation at the time. For instance, there's a scene about magazine L, which was just like for 1 year translated in Slovene. But still, this structure of intertextualism, I think, is strong enough that it works well even with the passage of time. Okay. Okay, now I go to one quote from Janez Janša from his text about reenactment, which you'll find here. And he says that no matter that, because we have like high quality material, we can get close to the image of the original show, we cannot reenact the audience and how they experience that show. So basically, that's the context which was lost. And I would here basically add, there are 2 more contexts which I think which were lost. One is the context of performers themselves, so the performative attitude, and the other is like the spirit of the time from which both the performers and the audience understood the pieces. And to understand what Janez meant with we cannot reconstruct the audience, it's like what Blaž Lukan said about reenactment. Who do we have to slaughter on stage today to get the same effect? Of course, it's a silly presupposition. It's like asking how many times can you print a white page to get the same effect as in 1968? Well, you can, but meanings will be different. So you can do it as many times as you want. Okay. How far? Okay. Lukan also said, and Emil agrees, that basically we're working with 3 shows. So we're working with original show, the reenacted show, and the reconstruction as like the 3rd show, the meta show. And so what Emil basically, well, he was Emil at the time, did was basically he showed the process of how he, so the process of reenactment was always just to see an example. So yeah. So he would directly show copying. So the approaches are direct copying of original video material, or performers copying each other, or like copying images, using also a principle of chance and so forth. Now, just to quickly show what was shown to be the difference in the context of the original and this piece. One is the obvious, which was killing of the chicken. So just to get it short, the reason why we didn't kill the chicken is because the law prohibits it now, because of EU regulation, because we wanted to be frank. But then Nevenka Kopriušek, who was the organizer of the plays we were performing and were to, I mean, we were rehearsing and were to perform, said no, which of course. And what we sometimes fail to understand, that in '69 the problem with the chicken was not killing of the chicken as such, because people had families in rural areas, chicken got killed. The problem was killing it on the sacred place of the stage, and that killing of the chicken was not repeatable. So like the idea of theater being repeatable while you kill the chicken, it's not. Well, but this was intentional, of course. But the other thing is more interesting, which was this scene. So this is like the reconstruction. In the original scene, the whole group was just like patting each other. They were caressing each other, and they spoke text, which is like when you write to a journal, hey, I've got a problem with, I don't get erection when I sleep with my girlfriend, oh, I don't know if I'm gay or not, or stuff like that, the psychological advice. And when we tried to reenact this, it didn't work. Completely didn't work. Like, they were just like lying there and nothing happened. And so our solution was, I mean, Janez proposed a solution of basically putting them then people in very, oh sorry, maybe I'm showing the wrong scene. Ah yes, here we are. So they were actually put in classical sex positions, so doggy style, oral sex, like very, how you see pornography, because like the whole sexual revolution was gone. And this is like my case of like that there is certain performative stance which couldn't be repeated, because like the performers themselves were in different historical situation, let's say. Okay. Moving on. So then I did like a series of reenactments of walks. So this is just like Vojenkovac Chubby walking in, this I think is 66. He walks through the city of Ljubljana in pajamas. And basically I did, I tried to reenact everything very literal. I say, I will just do it as I did it, I will not change anything, and then I will perform it in different contexts and see what happens. But I was already doing interpretations. So, because when I did it, I wear like a flannel, very worn out pajamas, which was completely different, because one of the people who saw this, Niko Boršić, says, no, it has to be stripped because prison. That's what he said. Whereas I didn't basically acknowledge this, this part. And so, just for instance, one thing which I did, Jerzy Kovanda Theater, this is from '76. There is just a photo of him being, I think, like this. And there is like a title, go in public space and do pre-planned actions without people knowing that they're pre-planned. So first time I did it, I was really thinking about how to do it that people don't know, and then I just, no, you think what you think. And so, for instance, normally it's just this, but when I did this at farmer's market, they would say, oh, it's yoga. So different context. When I would do it like over there, which we call like the beach with all the fancy bars, there were like youth trying to mock me and laugh at me. So I would go like that way, that I would physically interact with people so they couldn't be at a distance from me. So these were like ideas of different contexts. Another one was, Valley export from the underdog file, which is, my partner walked me on a dog leash and I walked on all fours. And when we did this at the farmer's market, people were upset. They harassed her, like, how can you do this in public space, you do this at home? But like a couple of months later, we went like to 3 Bridges, and a group of Japanese tourists saw us and just went, oh, it's a performance, and they started photographing. So obvious, and another thing, like half an hour after people were upset that I was being led on a leash, one of the actions I did is running around naked, and then I got applause. So I mean, this was like really like exploration of like this micro context. But what was really shown is that in 2011 I was invited to Madrid. There was like a working laboratory. So each day one person did 3-hour workshop for everybody else, and I made people do this and some other things like were related to this action. And what I found out is that my premise all along was that these were actions of a solo individual against like the majority of people. But in fact they were not. It turns out they work as a collective, micro-collective against the mainstream, or in terms of the 60s, as youth culture against adult culture. And also when I talked to Jožica, she said, yeah. Of course. So when Chubby walked in pajamas, he wasn't walking as himself. He was walking for like entire generation, right? So this is like a context which we've missed. How are we with time? Okay. So let's go to Monument G. The problem of Monument G is that unlike Pupilla, where there were when we had like 3/4 of the show, here we had 6 minutes. So we really didn't have much. And so particular things about this show. So this was done in 1972 as part of experimental theater Glade. What was particular about Glade at the time was that it was sort of like in between like these avant-garde notions, or like seeing stuff like in BTEF, or like what was avant-garde modern at the time. But these directors wanted to transition to institutions. So this was supposed to be professional theater, not some like more of a commune thing, which is another theater at the time Pekarna was doing, which was much more focused on ritual and just nobody was paid and stuff like that. What happened here is they started with a text of 70 pages and they cut it to 15 sentences. And the idea, and also it was a year-long project. They started with 12 actors and ended up with Jožica and Matjaž, who is a musician on a guitar. And the idea was to reduce text as much as possible, but still sort of retain the content or certain vibe. The content was, this was Monument G, is that that partisan ghost comes from the monument. So that's one character, and the other is a young Barbara who is skeptical of older generation and doesn't feel in debt to them. Okay, so what happened in reenactment was that the original cast, minus the dramaturge, because he passed away before, did their own reenactment from memory, and they ended up with 12 minutes out of 45. I mean, this is just like natural, so because this was not textual, there was no material, so what was remembered was in the body, and Matjaž, because he was not in, so the musician was not in theater, he had like a better memory because both Albel and Jovanović, they were like big names in Slovene theater, doing lots of production, lots of things, so it's like layers and layers of memory, right? And one thing is that I remembered from a rehearsal, which was one time we were, so Jovanović, so when I joined the process, Jovanović left, so like the young crew took over and did, again, Emil did a very similar thing, so we have a young performer, the original performer, and it's like simultaneous stuff going on the stage from both sides. So she is reenacting from photographs and visuals, she is reenacting from memory, or maybe better say, creating anew. And one time we were very clever, and Jožica Albel said, well, that's not how we did it. Like, we didn't think, we just went and did it, and we were all very clever, and all that, yeah. But then in 2011, I have seen a show from Božidar Mandić, Analogije. So he is from a commune in Serbia, which was founded in 1977. Like, he's an old guy, and young people come to him, and he teaches them theater. And so these are like Porodica Bistrih Potoka, so a family of clean streams, something like that. And I've seen that show, and it felt like I've seen like things that we've been missing. Like, they were doing stuff very similar to Kupilja. They were doing tasks, but they had like performative attitude, completely different from us, which were more like distance and chill and neutral. They were physically engaged. The boss said, so Mandić said that their training is football. But for me, it was like feeling like, you know, researcher finding a living fossil. And then I was thinking, shit, did we miss something? And that's why I went to talk to Jožica. So one thing was that in the interview in '72, Lampret, so the dramaturg and the director, said that basically they followed her as a performer, that she would come with material, and they just sort of directed, like, looked and pulled stuff out, but she was basically the one bringing material. And so then is the question, okay, but what is this material? Because I will here go to, so one of my common references is Joran Peters, a dramaturg, and the text Heterogeneous Dramaturgies, and he quotes, first thing, he quotes Boris Shamadze and says that performer always organizes their inner space. Basically, a performer in the act of performing is doing dramaturgy and direction. So it's not like direction and dramaturgy just outside of performance. No, performer when performing is also directing and creating dramaturgy and pulling the material, which is also performative material, into the open, manifesting it. And another thing Peter says is, so what is like the material? And said like, and he says that the meaning is already present in the material, and then you just have to watch carefully and bring the interesting things out. So when Jovanović and Lampret say, well, we just followed her, well, this is what they were doing, I think. So they were following this material. And then the question is, well, what is this material? Like, where did Jožica's material come from? Because we were going like, was it Grotowski? And she said, no, this was later. But what happened was that, so Jožica was at the time second year of academy. So I think like around 20 years old. And in the first year, she got a mentor, Lojska Žerdin. So she just then entered academy, and so she was a dancer trained in Mari Wigman, so Ausdrucktanz. And Jožica Albel basically loved her classes, did also dance productions with her. So she had training. Not only that, in her biography, Joži, you can see that she tells that in the summer of 71, so Lojzka Žerdin, each summer she went to Dresden to some dance classes by Greg Paluka, and so Jožica will hitchhiked there and went there before Monument G. So like we were basically talking of a performer who was very physically fit and had like the training of contemporary dance, jazz ballet and ballet at the time. So this is also like where the material comes from. And also she knew some yoga. This is from Samo Simčić. And so talking to her, and also this is in her book, she said that through Monument G she developed a concept she calls non-acting, as contrary to like drama acting or Stanislavski and things like that, which is that she all the time embodies whatever it is, so she goes in her body. And she says that she distinguishes like the role, then her acting knowledge, like technique, and then she said there is Jožica, there is me, and I'm doing what I want to do, but this means like coming from the body, embodying. And this is why I said that Jožica, even here, she's not recreating from memory, she's creating anew, of course, from memory, because like the thing is, the original show had like creative process, but we also had a creative process, a new creative process, of course different one, because they didn't know where they were going and we knew we wanted to reenact them, so of course it's different. But for me it was also like a feeling to understand that our attitude of deconstructing, of putting things apart, also brought a specific performative presence, which was a more like distant, cynical one. It was just basically a presence created from the method of working, as her presence was created from her method of working. And that's basically where I am at the moment with the research, and also like feeling that for me it was interesting that it took repeating, touring, seeing shows over and over again to notice even later what was that which I felt that we missed before, which I think is cool. So yeah, that's it.